There's a concept called the wounded healer.
Yes.
And the most powerful shamans, magician, and healers are the broken ones.
Yeah.
As children in these tribes either had a near-death experience or a disease or some trauma opens the channels of communication, and they become the shaman of the tribe. And they heal not in spite of their wounds, but because of their wounds. They're in so much pain, they understand the pain of others,
yes,
and they address them, but it eventually destroys them. And there's traditions in circumpolar shaman tribes. Shamans and north and south, they end up like Elvis. They end up as fat drug addicts, sick people, just there, and the tribe's like, well, that's your job. You're the one who has to heal us and entertain us and advise us. And the shaman's like, I know, that's my job.
Burden.
And they die. And Elvis was carrying that burden. He was a wounded healer, a shaman. And I have other theories. I try to approach it from Jungian, alchemical, different theories. We'll never know. It's a mystery. Happy heresies, and welcome to the desert of the real. Welcome to Ayambite, and excuse my voice, still recovering from that that throat infection, and I hope you don't mind my intro from my appearance in Gaia about the wounded healer and the shaman. I feel it is salient today, and as always, my name is Miguel Connor, your pompatus of Gnosis, and that madman across the waters of creation. So good to see everybody today on this Mercury day, and I hope everybody is doing fine, whether you're watching live or you are catching the replay on video and audio. And indeed, I think our guest certainly falls into the line of the wounded healer, and I would say our guest is certainly a shaman, and that is Richard Stanley, who is coming back to honor the virtual Alexandria for a second time. This time to discuss a book that really touched me, my favorite this year easily, and that is Otto Rahn, Grail Hunter, The Secrets of the Cathars and the Return of the White Lady. Richard, thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure, Miguel. Thank you for inviting me. An absolute joy to be joining you on Aeon Byte, and moreover, to be able to bring the book. It's been a long time coming.
It has indeed. I'm glad it's out. And with us too, we've got Graham Pong. Graham, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And Miguel, you probably shouldn't go quite so far to embody the wounded healer here.
That is true. That is true. But you know, fate sometimes has you. As Jung said, ideas have us. And you know, the stage is set. Long before we were born, we go on this journey. And I feel that's really what happened to you, Richard. I see this book. I think it's an incredible journey because it's 3 storylines. It's a story of the Cathars. It's a story of Otto Rahn, and it's a story of this character called Richard Stanley. 3 stories that are on top, interposed within them. I don't see these stories as having a beginning of the end, and I see these stories as continuous. So that's your book, isn't that, Richard? It's amazing.
Well, I've been living and working here in the French Pyrenees for more than 30 years now, and what's very clear is that so much of the mystery of this place is to do with the layers of time. So many things have happened in the same place that to try and understand the present and the future, you really are obliged to try and understand the past. I mean, my experience of the place is incomprehensible without understanding Otto's experience of the place. And Otto's quest is completely inaccessible unless we understand his obsession, which was with the medieval heresy, the so-called Cathars of the 12th and the 13th century. So really you have to tell at least those 3 stories to have any real feeling for what is happening. And there's simply, layers of time. And in this this first book, I've very much gone after the period immediately before the war, the 1920s and 30s, which is a period which is just passing out of living memory. I was super lucky to have met as many people as I did who still had first-hand memories of those events. But I think by now, pretty much everyone who was there at that time has passed on. So it was a matter of trying to record that as best as I could, while it was still possible.
Oh, indeed. Yes, I feel, there's a timeless quality about your book. And for the audience, it is full of pictures and notes. It is just very well documented. Do you feel you are both so far and so close as when you started? Or how do you feel? It seems like you're just, again, you were called and you're just doing your job, right? You followed your call.
Well, I feel that I've managed to put a few more pieces of the jigsaw in place, but there's still far more unanswered questions than there are demonstrable proofs. And I mean, I'm also a great believer that in the old Fortean maxim, extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. So while I'm a believer at heart, when you're coming in with historical claims about things as wild as the Holy Grail, or things that impact on events like World War II and the ideological underpinnings of the Holocaust, one really does need to be fact-checked to have one's sources down. And the more wild those claims become, particularly when you enter into the domain of the supernatural, it's very, very tricky and dangerous territory. So I'm a stickler for material evidence, and also wondering, not knowing how much longer I'll be around for. And I made an effort on this book to try to put as many of the first-hand documents together as possible. I wanted to include maps. I wanted to include lists of names of places that I haven't had time to search myself, because at times there's whole regions that I'd love to continue the chase in. I mean, I've not done the work in Italy, haven't done nearly as much work in Germany as I should have done. And we still don't really know what happens to Otto Rahn after the North Icelandic Cape and the edge of the Arctic Circle in 1936. So there's big blank spaces that I hope younger mystery seekers and treasure hunters will have a chance to dive into, because there's certainly prima facie evidence in the book that gives them more to go on than I had to go on when I got started 30 years ago.
Oh, indeed. Yes. And for the audience, yes, you are definitely an archaeologist. You like to go to these places. You went to the Arctic Circle, and needless to say, froze. You were very cold. You'd like to touch these places, be these places. Always very jealous. I hope one day to join you there. And I've talked to Amanda about going to Cathar land, but Saturn has decided that it's not my time, and he calls the boundaries. So, but let's talk about the beginning for the audience who might not know. How did this quest begin? It began with you going to do some film. You weren't very interested, and then something happened, right?
Well, yeah, I'm a working filmmaker, and was working in and out of the British television industry. And this thing started rolling in the summer of 1990. And it came as a result of Channel 4 television having a hit documentary called The Real Jurassic Park, which was about retrieving dinosaur DNA from amber. And as this went down well, they decided to follow it up with a Rail Raiders of the Lost Ark. And for some reason, I got fingered to research the program.
Mhm.
I think possibly because of my hat. I can't really think of any other reason. I've got no other connection to World War II or military
Right.
history. But then was in the very strange position of being sent to Europe with an expense account to track down effectively surviving members of the Ahnenerbe SS of Himmler's archaeological group, basically, and to see if I could get them to consent to be interviewed for British television. So effectively, I got sent off to some strange and shadowy folk, and I found pretty early on that there wasn't an Ark of the Covenant story to be had, at least not a Nazi Ark of the Covenant story. But there was a Holy Grail story. And while it seemed fantastical at first, the more I probed into it, the more it checked out. And this is partly because of my penchant for going to the place. You can't really beat actually physically going to the site. And as a result, when I started reading Otto Rahn's work, and at that time, this being 1990, it was super hard to find. It hadn't been translated out of the original German, and it had been kind of shoveled into the same mass grave of inconvenient Nazi data. So I literally had to read it in the original German and get pieces of it translated, and then physically went to the places that Otto was talking about. And I think that, made a huge difference, because I started to realize that the man had a point, that the things he was saying in Crusade Against the Grail weren't necessarily cloud cuckoo land. There was some, real life basis to Otto's theories. So the further I went in, the more the evidence massed up and checked out. And I very rapidly found it wasn't the Indiana Jones shaped story that Channel 4 had in mind, because obviously once you start to tunnel into the Third Reich, the material is dark and sobering, and going further deeper into the history of the medieval heresy of the Cathars and the genocidal extermination of the people of Occitania in the 12th, the 13th century. It's kind of too somber, I think, for the kind of family-friendly 4 p.m. slot that the television station might have originally had in mind. But after satisfying my own curiosity that there was indeed a story to be told, I didn't want to just walk away when the television company lost interest. Once I realized the witnesses were dying, and dying quite rapidly, I basically drew on my own resources to interview them, to go and hunt down all of the different surviving associates of Otto Wilhelm Rahn, and try and collect their testimony. And also, while I was at it, to see if I could maybe find Rahn, and if not find Rahn, at least try to find the missing third part of his Grail thesis. And obviously, on a lucky day, we're all hoping that maybe there would also be a cup or a Grail floating around somewhere. Which
Not so lucky, and that's what is so interesting is, again, you show Otto Rahn's journey and his own quest to find these secrets, and as you say, what he found is probably more startling and maybe even more rewarding, because he did find, and you have these incredible pictures in caves but he found a religion that's older, much older than the Cathars, really the primordial religion of this great mother. And this great mother, I agree with you, this female of chaos is the solution to our problems today. It's our way out. But that's what Otto Rahn really found, right?
I believe so. I mean, the Grail is a mysterious thing because it's a physical object. It's an artifact, a lost relic. But at the same time, it's a spiritual ideal. And if our three-dimensional reality is just a shadow of a spiritual truth, then it makes sense that even a spiritual ideal could find material embodiment in the form of one relic or another. So it's Otto's quest is somehow at once a spiritual quest, but it's also an Indiana Jones type quest for some very specific relics which still exist and are still a problem even in our present era. I mean, one of the reasons I put this book together and got it out is because there's a substantial number of folk out there who would really have preferred this book not to exist.
Really?
And unfortunately, this force, which I think is actively opposes writers at present and researchers working, having anything much to do with the so-called Cathars. And I say so-called because there's a lot of folk out there who insist that the Cathars never existed. And
yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, but there truly is a force in our current technosphere and society which would very much like to erase the inconvenient history of the so-called Cathars to keep it a secret. I think Otto Rahn in his obsessive quest really broke the seal on that. He wrote the first account really of the Albigensian Crusade and the fall of Monségur, the rise, glory, and fall of the Grail Castle, to ever appear outside of France. And this was a bestseller in Germany in, I think, 1932. And in fact, that's what drew unfortunately for Otto, the interest of Himmler's Black Order. Otto undertook his quest very much on his own heart and out of his own esoteric delirium, his own obsession. And it was really only after he'd written the book that the Third Reich became involved.
Yes, indeed. And it is odd, as historians have noted, that after the Cathars fell, the Grail legends stopped in Europe. So something we can go all day, something very powerful was going all day. And the theories are so much. I like the idea of the Lucifer stone because it goes with the idea of Kybel falling from heaven and the meteorite and all that. And I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Patrice Chaplin, similar to yours, except she's working on Girona and the portals and same, you're on France, she's in Spain. But that seems to be one of the main theories. And I remember when Amanda showed up, our first podcast, we started and she took out the stone, rubbed it, and it was bleeding. And I still can't forget that, Richard, the bleeding stone.
Yeah, the bleeding stones are real. I first saw them in 1998, I think 8 years into the quest. I started in 1990, and that was definitely a blow to my my atheism. That was one of the first points when I felt a little uneasy because I totally assumed that part of the story was a fiction or a romantic ideal. Otto identifies the hermit Trebizond in Parsifal with the Cathars, this figure of the hermit living in the cave who will eat neither flesh nor fowl. Tells Parsifal the secrets of the bleeding stone that he also identifies with the Grail very explicitly in this late 12th century text that Otto believed may have been written or originally created around the court of Carcassonne, the court of Raymond Tronqueville and his family in Carcassonne immediately before the Crusade. So, which is a point contested by various historians in all kinds of ways. But there's a very real possibility that Otto could be right. And I do believe that that Master Giot, the fictional creator of the Grail, was a real person and not a fictional creation. I think he was onto something. But beyond all that, certainly the history of what happened in the South, the suppression of this nameless form of proto-Christianity that we now identify with Catharism. And so many of the things that were deliberately expunged from the history books, I mean, notably gender equality. Before the Albigensian Crusade, children could take their mother's surnames. Women could officiate as priests and could command armies and inherit land, which is no small thing. The belief that animals had souls and could reincarnate as humans, which meant that on the whole, these medieval heretics were vegetarians. Again, vegetarianism was ruthlessly suppressed here in Occitania. People were basically forced to eat meat or face dire penalties, and a meat-eating culture was deliberately imposed on the South. Just like so, a lot of these ideas, I think, are super cogent, whether one wants to believe in the Grail or to identify the Grail Castle of Monségur or not. The history of the place is still striking and challenges many of our assumptions about Christianity.
Oh, indeed. But you mentioned what changed your atheism, but at the same time, when you were there, first time in Monségur with your girlfriend, Kat, at the time, you did have a mystical experience. I mean, you did see something that forever changed your life, and she seems to have been possessed by some entity as well, some egregore or thought form. So wasn't that what changed your perspective, or said this is where I need to be for the rest of my mortal life?
No, it wasn't. I was such a stubborn bugger, like a lot of guys, I think. The mind is a monkey. On my very first visit to Monségur, my then partner and myself went up to the castle and sat on the battlement, mostly so I could have a smoke and see the setting sun. And we got caught in an insane late summer electrical storm. And it was in a period before there was a lightning conductor on the north-facing tower. So it wasn't just striking into one lightning conductor; it was coming down in multiple bolts into the top of the mountain, which gave the impression of something very close to the hand of God, or some kind of something feeling around the mountaintop with great burning fingers. And we were utterly terrified and fairly traumatized by the experience. But it certainly made me pay attention. Because if that hadn't happened, I'm sure I would have gone tooling on my tour of different sites connected to Otto's theory and might never have come back. But Monségur slapped us around sufficiently hard that it made me pay more attention. So I think it was good at that point in time. And then I spent the next bunch of years trying in vain to photograph it. I never got a shot of an electrical storm, anything like what I saw on the first time round. But I basically told myself that it was because of the high iron content in the mountain. Also, the way that the castle walls suck in the voltage means that inside the keep, inside the castle, you're effectively inside a Faraday cage. Having all those hundreds of thousands of volts pumping around you must surely change the electromagnetic field within the castle, which naturally affects human brainwaves and our own perceptions. So if you have a tendency towards epilepsy, I think it would certainly trigger that. And there's a relationship between epilepsy and frontal lobe epilepsy and seeing angels and divine apparitions anyway. So I used all that science to basically hold on to my atheism. But I became intrigued and started trying to figure out how it worked and what the rules were. And I kept chasing Otto. Then I guess 98 was when I saw the Bleeding Stones and realized that part of the story was true as well. And that also, opened the door a little further. And 1998 was when I had to wind down the operation of hunting down the witnesses and interviewing them, most of them were already dead by then, and we'd already sought out pretty much everyone who was ever going to allow us to talk to them.
Yeah, time always runs out, but you've continued on this quest. And yes, and for the audience, good crowd tonight. If you have any questions for Richard, we can get to them, but please super chat them so we can separate them from the audience. And what do you think was we're finding out what drove you? What drove Otto for his lifelong quest, which ultimately cost him his life? What do you think drove him? Again, sometimes I think these things are happening all at the same time, and it's all part of the same story.
Well, I admit I kind of liked Otto. So that was a part of it. Despite the fact he became an SS man, I found myself sympathetic towards Otto, which made me, I guess, continue with the quest. But Otto came out of the Black Forest, and he grew up very close to a castle in the Black Forest called Schloss Wildenborg. And Wildenborg Castle is where Wolfram von Eschenbach wrote Parsifal, the troubadour epic, back in the 12th century. So growing up around the castle and in that region, he would have been heavily imbued in the myth of the place. And I think this desire to prove that Parsifal reflected a true story and wasn't just a romantic fantasy, but contained elements of a genuine spiritual process, must have come into his mind very young. I think he was obsessed with those legends and the Knights of the Round Table and the Nibelung and the Little People from an early age. And I think he would have liked to have been one of the brothers Grimm. I think Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm would probably have been role models to Otto. He was a very otherworldly kid. Didn't make many friends. His brother died when he was quite young. I think he was lonely. His dad was a magistrate who was often moving from town to town, so that he didn't have the chance to stay in school for long, and was often moved to new areas. He was bullied at school. Later, basically came out as gay when he was really quite young, which already in his mid-teens, he's pretty openly gay and writes about it, which again would have driven a wedge between him and the regular farmers' kids in at the schools he was going to. So I think he was an outsider from the very beginning, and on one level was looking to prove that the Grail was real. But I also feel in some ways he was also looking to come home, that he was searching for the place where he really belonged, or what his heart was yearning for. And he sought out these mythical locations, which in many cases turned out to be incredible. I mean, I adored Monségur, but going further back into the Picti Saint Barthélemy, into the massif behind it, and reaching the Lake of the Druids, the Lactus Trut, or Rahn's Droidensee, the Druid Sea. Wow! Then higher up to the Lake of the Devil, the Lac du Diable. These are amazing places, which some of the resonate at a level that's, if you believe in such things, it's like, Glastonbury to the power of 100. It's so they're such strong sites that I realized Otto had a very good natural aptitude for finding powerful places.
He was indeed questing, and like you said, he was the king of this world. Was not going to allow him to, wasn't going to make things harder like he tends to do to all of us who try to get closer to this. On a little side question, and this is from Tobias Churton, who always used to poo-poo the idea that the troubadours really were we know they're the progenitors of what we call romantic love, but all they were doing was retelling the story of Sophia and Jesus, that ancient Gnostic story of logos and wisdom. And Tobias Churton thought it was ridiculous, romantic, but now he's changed his mind to realize that the troubadours really brought this gnosis to the world. Do you have a stance on this, Richard, or what do you think?
No, the troubadours are certainly a part of it. I mean, the real horror and tragedy of this is that we're just emerging from 7 centuries of the Inquisition and witch hunters, who have been killing and burning everyone who knew anything about this for centuries and centuries, and have been destroying books and records wholesale for centuries. So we only get little bits of the truth handed down, and the troubadour songs and what little we have of their material is some of the only real vestiges of that current that are available to us now. I'm sure that there were many bolder statements of it, but much of that is lost. I mean, you could argue Gothic art and architecture and the symbolism contained in the great cathedrals is another vessel for how some of this spiritual science and truth has been handed down to us. But there's certainly stuff within the troubadour songs, and it was also the courts of the people who basically looked after those troubadours, like the troubadours gathered around the courts of certain personalities out here in the south. I mean, particularly, I think relevant to our present era was something called the Courts of Love, which was basically a sort of 12th century Occitanian version of the Bene Gesserit from Dune. They were like all of the noble, educated ladies who got together in secret for a sort of quasi-Masonic gathering, like about twice a year in different castles, and got together around the round table, and there'd be a high priestess and a chatelaine, and they'd hear complaints brought to the court, and they kept statutes and records, and basically adjudicated society, arranged marriages and property deals, and decided whether knights had acted honorably. And troubadours flocked to the courts of these ladies to the extent that becomes the root word for cabaret, for our word for live entertainment, just because of the number of musicians, the rock stars of their day, because some of them definitely come across to me like the Iggy Pops of their times. Some of these guys were were fully wild.
Iggy Pop, what a comparison.
Pierre Vidal reminds me of Iggy Pop.
Yeah. Thought you might say David Bowie, because he was into the spear of destiny and all that Nazi occultism at some point. So he's a little
mostly pretty irritating. I mean, and from the point of view, a lot of them are spending way too much time criticizing the people they're working for, and being quite insulting, as in Monty Python. I can see why so many of them were killed or had their tongues taken out.
Right. And like you said, I think we are changing the age, and I believe in the belly bass prophecy. I do think the white lady's coming. We are without a doubt changing of the age. Is how we get there transform. It depends on what our knowledge is and our rituals. But I mean, the church is losing its power. There's no doubt. But at the same time, the king of the world, the Rex Mundi, is not going to let it go, because you and I don't get burned at the stake, Richard, or thrown in a dungeon. Well, unless we want to be kinky, but we don't get thrown in dungeons or anything like that. But at the same time, academia is doing this strange job, and you know it, trying to erase the Gnostics. There were never any Gnostics. Some scholars are like, well, there were never any mystery religions. What are you talking? There were no mystery. And of course, now you know the wave trying to say there were never any Cathars. It was just Catholics with their own little naughty ideas. What do you say to that?
No, I think it's a manifestation of that same force that's
the forgetting
tried
force.
to completely erase the Cathars and genocidally exterminate all trace of these ideas. It's it's not the same people, obviously. It manifests through different social forces down through the ages.
Right.
It's amazing how it manages to do that. And I was really hoping that after 7 centuries of oppression, it would be over. That it would finally be possible, to write a goofy book like this, or talk about this material without being attacked. But unfortunately, it's not like that. It's simply manifested its way into a different form, and people writing about the Cathars and about these mysteries are being ruthlessly attacked online. At present, I note Anne Brenon, the French Cathar historians, enduring a very terrible time online, and my heart goes out to her. On the Centre d'Études Cathar, the Centre of Cathar Studies, also known as the René Nelly Centre in Carcassonne, that was among the first places to preserve the original 12th century manuscripts, has been closed, has been forced to basically close its doors, also through online attacks and consistent pressure. And it's thought that these attacks are coming from still from right-wing Catholicism, quite possibly through Opus Dei, or basically those forces within the Vatican Catholicism is still challenged by these ideas, even in our present times, and even when they can't burn folk, and when heresy is no longer a crime. There are still forces in this world that are determined to keep that door very firmly locked and not to allow it to reawaken in our present, because that's what has been happening here in the South. It's that force has been getting stronger, and in recent years we've seen a backlash, a counter force, which has been trying hard to put it back in the can again.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's their modus operandi. They'll try to erase it. Doesn't matter what the Cathars called each other. The ancient Gnostics rarely called each other Gnostics. It's a modern term. I mean, Buddhism and Hinduism are colonizer terms. Nobody in ancient times said, "Are you a Buddhist or are you a Hindu?" So they take these little arguments, which really don't make sense. And even, like an argument, once a scholar once told me, Richard, well, Valentinus was just a Catholic who had his own ideas. I said, fine, I'll accept that argument. But are you aware that his ideas had to do with Sophia and the Demiurge and Neo-Pythagorean magic and structures of the universe, which were Egyptian? I mean, this wasn't a Catholic who was doing yoga on the weekend. These are radical ideas that were a threat to the world and transformative to the individual. I see in the Cathars, of course, these were individuals who had tapped into something primordial, ancient, transformative, dangerous by the results. The evidence says that. And so whether we call them Cathars or not is kind of irrelevant, right, Richard? They had a power that is ancient, and the world was not going to allow this power to come out.
Yeah, I mean, I try to make the point in the opening pages of the book that the word Cathar would probably have largely been an insult to begin with, and it's very close to Kafir or Kafir, which is what you commonly call folk who aren't followers of the one God, and which is what the Arabs used to describe people in North Africa and the slaves. And Kafiristan in Afghanistan was the place where the pagans still were. The difference between a TH and an F in a subliterate world is, at the time of the Crusades, would seem a very small thing. Also, the subsequent Keter or Ketzer, used by the Teutonic knights and witch hunters, meaning black cat or folk who kiss the ass of a cat, were definitely fight words and calumnies used by the oppressors, used by the folk who sought to kill them. I don't believe that anyone would naturally have called themselves a Cathar, and so it's unfortunate in a way that's come about. I don't doubt that those folk just thought of themselves as good people or Christians.
Yeah, for sure. Again, that's Gnosticism. One of its abilities is to attach itself into a culture, sort of nod their head, and we're part of your culture, but we still have these great secrets of, the goddess and all that we are smuggling, we are keeping, we are taking, these shamanistic ancient traditions. So I don't see a problem with that at all. but they were certainly their own people with very radical ideas and power.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this issue with the goddess. There's the underlying issue of the Grail and the goddess that was effectively there first, and which got displaced by the patriarchal one god. Seemed to be the underlying issue throughout. I mean, if I could reduce it to a sentence, maybe the meaning of Parsifal, if I could pare it down to one idea, is that a true hero always questions, or always asks questions. The question in Parsifal in the Grail epic is, whom does the Grail serve? And that remains hugely relevant.
Very true. I think my favorite quote from Parsifal is, you see, my son, here time turns into space. It's like he's talking about quantum physics centuries or before it was even there. It's an incredible story. Not seeing super chats. We have here one. Thanks for your support. Yeah, it is H.P. Lovecraft. And he says, cheers to my favorite Lovecraftian director. So that's a compliment to you. And yes, without a doubt, Color Out of Space is the best adaptation of Lovecraft. Nothing comes close. Nothing even comes close. So speaking of primordial beings trying to come through the dreams, Cthulhu's proud.
Well, Cthulhu is surely a part of this. I mean, it's strange to say, but I live here in the so-called zone in the south of France, and it's guarded on one side by Monségur, by the Grail Castle, and on the other side of the zone is Mount Bucharest. And Bucharest and Monségur are exactly the same height. They kind of watch each other across the trees and mountains, and I always think of them as the two seas of the two polar currents of the zone, the Cathars and Cthulhu, because Bucharest has got nothing to do with human history. It's fully alien and ultra-dimensional and natural. There's no castle there. It's its own weird thing, whereas Monségur is kind of a work of magic. It was a naturally powerful place where that natural energy has been channeled in a very particular way by the human history that's taken place there. But yeah, Cthulhu is surely a part of this, and there's a part of me that is fully willing to accept that maybe Cthulhu is dreaming us, because it's certainly I do feel that we're living inside a dream, and it does provoke the question of who is the dreamer.
Yeah. The Red King, Vishnu, Cthulhu. Don't ask him to wake up. And even I always liked Tracy Twyman's research that said, and she ties it into German and the Thule Society, that Cthulhu is a word for one of the kings of Atlantis. So Lovecraft was just doing an allegory for Atlantis falling and rising again. You know, fun mythology to speculate, right, Richard? And
what's funny about Lovecraft stuff is that it's dreaming its way into existence. If the old ones weren't real before, they're becoming real now, more and more so, and it's super odd. I mean, Lovecraftian things keep turning up on the place maps here where I'm living, which it shouldn't do, but they do. I mean, first there was a pre-Roman stone ritual site called Kugalu on one side of the valley, and then we found there was a second Kugalu, and no one could figure out what the etymology was. And then a Kuguru was found on the other side of Bucharest, which seemed to form a triangle. At the base of that, near the Col St. Louis, a few years ago, they found the largest limestone network in Europe. It's a cave system 25 miles long, not yet open to the public, but near the Col St. Louis. And the folk who found that then subsequently christened it the Cthulhu demoniac. So at this point in time, the largest limestone system in Europe is named after Cthulhu, and that's a real place near the Col St. Louis. The largest gallery inside the cave's been named the Necronomicon. All of the names within it are drawn from Lovecraft. I'm sure he would have been delighted to be honored in that way. But it's also, in a way, tangible proof of the way that Lovecraft's fantastical dream worlds and concepts are becoming, in some odd way, a physical reality in our 21st century.
I would agree with it. And you discovered this before or after you did your film?
No, kind of during, which is what made it creepier.
Oh boy!
Yeah, no, it was worse. It was actually after, because I was taking a tilt at adapting Call of Cthulhu. I mean, everyone's got a Call of Cthulhu within them somewhere, so I was trying to write a Call of Cthulhu draft, and the deeper I got into the coils of Cthulhu, suddenly I started noticing it was on place maps and turning up in all kinds of different weird ways in my physical waking reality, which led me to question whether or not we were in a dream to begin with. Super odd, but it's certainly potent, and I do believe that the old ones are coming back. That they're through some act of mass dreaming, through the promulgation of the mythos via what you might think of as a religious meme, or what Richard Dawkins would call a meme, means that hundreds of thousands of people are dreaming of them and thinking of them, and I think it's reaching a point of critical mass where the old ones are going to dream themselves back into our paradigm, which I for one would welcome it, because I think things couldn't possibly be much worse than they are now.
No, I see them as positive. They are chaos. They are Tiamat. They are our dreams, our unconscious. We can get Jungian, that we've ignored the waters of creation. So we need to get back to that, and we need to face our shadow, something humans are very bad at doing in the 21st century. So I would agree, and I do like Alan Moore's Providence. I don't know if you've read it. Great story on Cthulhu, except his sexual ideas of rape. I wish Alan Moore would just stop going there, but still a great story. So I do think that they are coming back. And let me bring in Graham. Graham, what do you think of our conversation, or do you have any questions for Richard?
Oh, no, I'm utterly fascinated. Richard is a walking encyclopedia of this time period. I was going to say I have two thoughts. Is one, where does he think the Grail phenomena all of a sudden started in the Middle Ages? Because it's doesn't seem a tradition tied to traditional Christianity. And, I hear stories about Templars and Bogomils and Crusades. Oh my, I was curious what Richard's take on it was. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's, as they say in John Bowman's Excalibur, many cups to choose from. There's a lot of different influences coming in that post-Crusade period. I mean, the 12th century troubadour epic Parsifals is really the first time it's written down. But who knows how long it had been floating around in the oral tradition before Chrétien de Troyes and then Wolfram actually wrote down accounts. It had probably been, floating around a long while. And at this time of the Crusades as well, there was stuff coming back from the Holy Lands, which would have changed Europe and also changed people's ideas of Christianity forever. I mean, increasingly, I believe that the Knights Templar, when they were in Jerusalem, excavated Temple Mount and excavated under El Aqsa Mosque, and found things that challenged their view of Christianity, and later would have led to them being abominated as heretics. And there was stuff coming back from the Holy Lands that didn't match the things that people were being told to believe by the Holy Roman Church. And where that Grail current first comes from, it's so hard to know. Wolfram von Eschenbach talks about Flegetanus the Moor, some fictional Arabic storyteller who saw the story of the Grail in the stars, which is a fully poetic allusion. But whether there was a Flegetanus the Moor or a Persian origin to the Grail myth, we do not know. But it enters our literature in the 12th and the 13th century, and we get the first record of it. And it isn't immediately associated with the Cup of Christ, not in its first iteration. That's comes about a century later, and it's part of the inevitable way that everything is made into a relic by the Holy Roman Church. And the Grail feels older and more mysterious, and indeed goes back to pre-Christian practices, the veneration of the old gods. And my contention would be that beneath a lot of these sites were originally temples of the goddess. I mean, underneath where the Vatican is now was the Phrygianum, the temple to the Phrygian goddess. And I believe underneath the Kaaba in Mecca, before the coming of Islam, there was the veneration of another black-skinned goddess, Hubal or Hubaba, the idol that was overthrown by the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I believe the same holds true of El-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. I believe that below it is, first of all, and probably an octagonal temple consecrated to the goddess, presumably from the time of the Romans. I think also the use of cups to venerate, especially connected with the wine and the harvest, is something in common to a number of Roman and pre-Roman deities and goddesses, which begs the question of whom does the Grail serve, and to whom does the cup and the power truly belong?
For sure,
No.
for sure.
Thank you. No, I was going to say on a quick follow-up there, what popped into my mind was, is there any parallel tying in with the Nazis about the spear of destiny, spear of falling giants? Because that may have another deeper tradition as well. I was curious if you found any connection between that and the Grail, the cup and the cup and the sword tag.
Well, I kind of deliberately didn't go after the spear story, which for all kinds of reasons. I guess it's because there were a number of books floating around already. I became fully obsessed with the cup. I'm prepared to accept that the spear is out there somewhere. And I spent my 30 years chasing the cup, and in particular these black stones, the Graal Pyrenean, the particular relic that associated with the Rahn mystery. There's many Grails to choose from. That's the thing. In the first account by Chrétien de Troyes, the Grail's a big serving platter, a golden dish with a Christian fish symbol on it that's carried into the hall. And I believe this particular relic actually exists and is part of the permanent collection of the Louvre Gallery in Paris. And it's definitely the thing that I think that Chrétien de Troyes describes as the Grail. So that kind of is the Holy Grail. Then there's the Cup of Valencia, which has got another very good claim on being the Holy Grail. And if we believe it's the blood of Christ, Dietrich of Alsace brought back what he believed was the blood of Christ and gave it to the town of Bruges, which venerates it in this sepulchre of the holy blood that has this alleged blood of Christ in a glass tube in Bruges. And I think they're all Holy Grails. They're all utterly different, but they could all quite easily tick the box of being the Grail itself.
Thanks for that. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the Knights Templar, of course, that's another one that the more research you do, the more you realize that the legends are very true. We've had guests here, Richard, who've shown how, like in the Notre Dame and a lot of the iconography or any Templar church, it's a blow-by-blow description of the Pistis Sophia. Or had recently Elena B. Scott, who had all these original texts by the Knights Templar, and they always talk about Dama Du, the lady of the goddess or goddess lady. And of course, nobody ever referenced the Virgin Mary by that name. So they were talking about another goddess, probably again, Sophia, that primordial goddess. So much is coming about. But I guess that would lead to as we get towards the end of our interview, do you think we stand a chance against the Rex Mundi? Do you think we can? Because again, your last chapter is really beautiful. And we do have a chance, like you said, to, make the war end, find a way to get connected to nature again and to stop the divisions and break the simulation, the illusion. Well, are you positive, Richard, or what do you think we need to do?
Well, I mean, I hope, or else I could not live. If the Grail at the end of the day is got to be, I guess, a symbol of hope, or that part of the unification of opposites, of balance finally breaking out, the marriage of the sun and the moon, the whatever it is that the marriage of Christ and Mary Magdalene represents, the harmonization of opposites, the possibility that somehow balance can be restored. I think the Grail represents that possibility, the possibility of peace somehow breaking out, and it's an ideal worth seeking. I think we have absolutely no choice but to reach for it, to reach for perfection of trying to make this a better world, or of either making it back to paradise or bringing paradise here in any way we can.
And do you feel what can each individual do? I assume you would tell people you are not powerless. You can make a difference.
I suspect everyone has ultimate power. It would seem it's extraordinary what anyone could do. And it does seem that even small actions have wider consequences, that there is a kind of butterfly effect in motion. And I do believe it's possible to make the world a better place.
Yeah, isn't that the whole premise of Lord of the Rings? Even the smallest creature or person can change the course of the future. So, butterfly effect, as you might say. That's all it takes.
Yeah, and I still don't really know how reality is made. It's the thing. It could well be that we're being dreamed, or that this place is, what you'd think of these days as a simulation, an illusory veil, and as such, even the smallest things, things that only happen inside of one's thoughts or dreams, may well have an impact on the wider picture. I guess aligning yourself is the very first step towards trying to bring the world into better shape. And it does need to be brought into better shape right now, because it's in really, really bad shape, and the three big patriarchal monotheisms are doing real bad at the moment. And
they're not going down without a fight and dragging the entire world down to hell with them. So we have to. And because I wonder about your book, because there's 3 storylines. You're talking about dreaming. I wonder if these storylines will change. Sometimes I think if I open this book in 6 months, Richard, some of the facts will change, like your life and everything else. Do you wonder about that too?
Well, I guess this edition represents a snapshot, and
at least it's there. It's there.
Yeah, so. We managed to get this much between 2 covers.
Oh, it's an excellent read. Highly recommend it. It's a joy to read. Again, you get 3 incredible stories, details again with maps, pictures of paintings, pictures of where Richard has been, a lot about Otto Rahn, which was a joy to learn about about his life, including his death, which I hope he did do the Enduria when he left Richard. In my romantic state, I hope that's how he left the world, like a Cathar. But
yeah,
I
I
can
like
only
to
hope.
believe that Otto committed suicide. I prefer to believe that he committed suicide rather than to think that he was murdered. And but if so, he chose a reasonable spot, and he must have
Place.
he must have been very, very alone. Either way, it was a very lonely way to die.
Yeah.
In time, he must have thought surely that all was lost. I mean, World War II was about to break out. The world was visibly going to pieces, and I'm sure he had no idea that anyone would come along 70 or 80 years later and pick up the pieces and try and retrieve his manuscript.
Yeah, like you said, he was an outcast. All of us artists can relate to him as an outcast. He was a gay man, a dreamer, a mystic, the kind of place the world tends to use and throw away or just shun. So it's tale as old as time, right?
Yeah, and but I think the little people, the fairies, the queen of the castle in Monségur liked Otto a lot. I get that impression.
Good.
Oh, wow!
Thunder!
Thunder outside. They see the mountain agrees.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Right on. Awesome. Well, yeah, I have, of course, a link to the book on the show notes. And of course, I have a link to Richard's website, so check it out. What else are you working on before we sign off, Richard? Anything exciting?
Well, quite a bunch of things. I mean, I'm certainly planning to do a second book along the same lines, which I'm having now had the opportunity to get all of the most dangerous Grail data between two covers and off my laptop. I am intending to do a
second
book involving the quest for the quest for this lost initiatory center and these elusive rulers of the world, the secret rulers of the world, which is I think a thing to go after. But I want to do a little more exploring further away from the Pyrenees. So next year, I really want to go to Altai, to Mongolia, and Kailash, and down into China, which is something I haven't done yet. And I want to do it before I get too old. There's a pressure on at the moment to do a Shambhala expedition.
That would be great.
I think needs must. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that should happen, to do with the end of the Kali Yuga, the beginning of this, the Satya Yuga, the coming of the Kalki Avatar. It's something that connects with Hinduism and Buddhism, and probably needs to be done.
Well, good luck with that. Yeah, we will send you good energy, and keep your youth. Keep your youth. It's only a number. So
True, but those are some high mountains.
Okay, a good argument about.
Yeah,
we have our limits.
I want to do that before I go. While I can, basically.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, we are at the end. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please support AM Byte, as I always like to say. Great shows coming. I think next week we're doing a show on the Gospel of Thomas. We have new research which will upend a lot of the Gospel of Thomas research, and that it started in Alexandria. Oh, we got one more super chat. What do you think is the main connection of the three monotheism? Thanks, Benjamin. What do you think is the connection, Richard? Solar powers?
Yeah, I guess they all seem to have been started to sort of come in somewhere after the collapse of dynastic Egypt, and somewhere after Thera got vaporized and the Minoan Empire collapsed. Suddenly this vengeful kind of patriarchal male one god came along. It became rougher for the multiple gods and things eras before. But yeah, not wild about the guy. That's to be sure.
Poor Yahweh. I always like to think of Neil Young's song, "Oh man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you." Our egos are a little demiurges sometimes, Richard. So what do you do? But we are at the end. Well, Graham, thanks first of all. Thanks for keeping us company, Graham.
Oh, as always, it's been my pleasure, and I thank Richard for sharing the grails that he's found, and I wish him the best on his quest for future grails.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Indeed, yes. Please get his book. It will change you, whether you're looking for research, insights, and where we're heading as a species. Excuse me. This throat infection. Demir just trying to keep me down, but he won't. I will be like Orpheus. I will
let him silence you.
Yeah. But Richard, always great talking to you, and good luck with everything. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Pleasure, sir. Thanks for inviting me.
Always. For everybody else, take care. Write your own gospel, live your own myth.